Today we have with us Mr. Pratik Agarwal. Pratik is the MD and CEO of Sterlite Power Transmission Limited and the Vice Chairman of Sterlite Power Grid Ventures. Sterlite Power Transmission was recently carved out from the Sterlite Technologies after a demerger. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tell us more about Sterlite Power and how it is different from Sterlite Grid.
Sure. Sterlite Power is a integrated power transmission company. We have three business lines. We do manufacturing, we do turnkey solutions, and we have a business which is called Sterlite Grid, which is into ownership and operations of power transmission systems. So Sterlite Power is now in a sense, the holding company or the parent company of Sterlite Grid, and it is India's largest integrated power transmission company, and in fact one of the few in the world which provides all forms of solutions to the needs of the power transmission industry.
Okay. So what are the kind of milestones you have set for Sterlite Power for the next 5 years?
Thank you. So let me take you back with what all we have achieved so far. Sterlite Power essentially is an interesting story because we have always taken head on the tough challenges of the power delivery space. We are not satisfied with having conventional commoditized businesses, which also we have, which are cash cows, but we focus on solving the toughest challenges of power delivery. In the last 5 years, we have built the largest independent privately owned transmission portfolio of 10 projects, of which 5 projects are commissioned or partially commissioned, and this we have done in record time and record cost. Essentially, we think that because of our efforts, the country has various parts of the country, power has been delivered ahead of schedule, and we feel very proud of that achievement. Some of the things we have done to achieve that, to crash the time considerably, is use of global technology, things like LiDAR surveys, helicopter mounted surveys, helicopter stringing, and we will continue to lead the industry as far as technology is concerned. Coming to your question about milestones, our milestones, we are a very customer centric organization, so our milestones are measured by the value we create for our customers. We don't have too many internal milestones around revenue or market cap or profit. Those will come. Our milestone is that can we be the most relevant company for our customers? Can we solve the toughest challenges of power delivery? So recently we got our senior team of 30 people together, and we co-created the core purpose of our company's existence. What we decided is the reason we exist is to empower humanity by addressing the toughest challenges of energy delivery. And it is this empowering humanity and the toughest challenges which we think will differentiate us from everyone else. The country has done a great job in terms of solving its generation problems. From a time of generation deficit, we are in a time of generation surplus. There are about 250 to 300 gigawatts of installed capacity in the country, which would have generated perhaps only 150 gigawatts last year. And we think that a large amount of this gap between capacity and production is because of lack of connectivity. We believe that delivering connectivity for power evacuation will be one of the biggest challenges of not only India but the global energy space. And we would like to make our mark by delivering projects ahead of schedule, by finding new technologies which will allow us to use existing corridors and push through far greater amount of power than it has been done previously.
Okay.
So those are our internal milestones.
Great. So when we talk about transmission and the problems with it,
right.
What are the main issues right now which is blocking the progress of transmission in the country?
Sure. So let me start by telling you a little bit about what I think are the greatest challenges of the energy sector themselves, and then we can get into transmission investment. So based on our global studies, and we have a fantastic team in this office that studies the global trends in power transmission, we think that there's going to be 3 major themes as far as power delivery is concerned. First one globally is going to be the large penetration of renewable energy that is going to enter the grid. It's never happened in the history of mankind where almost 10, 20, maybe even 30% of the total energy generation comes on during the day, goes off at night. Comes on during high wind speeds, goes off at different times. Our current operation system weren't designed for this. And we think that with the current prices of renewable energy is a guaranteed certainty, it will happen. Question is the transmission geared up to have that kind of absorption of renewable energy? The second issue is around, so within renewable energy, you've got two issues, right? One is of integration, I already mentioned. The second issue is of time. So in the conventional world, let's say in the 11th plan, there was, let's say 80,000 megawatts of generation to be added. Now this 80,000 megawatts of generation was a 5-year planning cycle. So it meant that the entire delivery network, which is transmission and distribution, also had 5 years to deliver matching time. Today, the country has 175 gigawatts of renewable capacity to add. Now that's not going to take 5 years. Solar parks, 500 megawatt solar parks are coming up in 6 months. Question is, can we deliver evacuation in 6 months? We don't think anyone in the world is ready for that kind of challenge, and we are gearing ourselves up for those challenges, right? And the lastly, so there are two more issues that are going to be a major challenge in the whole world, especially India, given the population density, is one of space. So as our biggest cities start consuming more and more power, load growth in our top cities will be 10-15% every year, regardless of what happens, and which means that in every 6 years, a city will double its power requirements. Now, how do you get that much power into the city? You can't build new lines because there's no space to build new lines. The city has expanded, and now the prime space to build new lines is occupied by real estate. This basically means one has to think of ingenious technologies on how to increase throughput on the existing lines. And it has to be increased throughput on the existing lines without shutting the line down, because those are trunk lines, those are lifelines of the city. This poses a very interesting challenge which never before has existed in the country. So this is the issue of space, right? That space doesn't exist. And the last issue I talk about is of large scale grid disruption. Global warming is happening. There is no denying it anymore. With global warming, not only are temperatures rising in the whole world, but the eccentricity of weather has gone up. Completely unpredictable things are happening. Cyclones have gone up. The wind speeds of cyclones have gone up. Places of deserts have seen snowfall and those kinds of things. So transmission lines that have been planned, let's say 30 years ago or 10 years ago, have been planned keeping a particular climate in mind. And all those assumptions are being tested, and in fact are being proven to be not true anymore in many cases. We have already seen, and we will see a large scale grid disruption, which will affect the stability of the grid because of climate change. And we think that the grid needs to get very, very intelligent to predict those changes, and accordingly the operators need to modify the operations. So those are the three areas to summarize. There is grid renewable integration, there is a space issue, there is a time issue, and there is a uptime issue.
Okay. So I think here comes the technological advancement that Sterlite has brought in.
Right.
So tell us more about it. You have introduced helicopters and drones. What's
Sure.
next in the pipeline?
So all our technology that we do, it comes from the customer pain point. We don't do any technology in isolation. We're not a technology company, we're an applications company, and our job is to solve the hardest challenges of energy delivery. So coming back to the problems that I talked about, let's talk of space. One needs to use existing corridors. I'll give you an example of perhaps Mumbai. Mumbai gets a critical line which comes from the east into Mumbai over the Thane Creek, and as a trunk route that brings maybe half of the Mumbai's power supply. Now, some estimates show that as some of the old power plants in Mumbai get shut down around Mumbai, that line will not be sufficient to bring enough power for the city of Mumbai, which is the lifeline of the country. And Mumbai is the one city which has never seen load shedding. It may begin to see load shedding for the first time in maybe 10, 15, 20 years. And that's something I'm sure the country can't afford. So there's a very interesting challenge that how do we use the current corridor and double or triple the current carrying capacity. So what Sterlite does in that is it does 2 or 3 things. One is that we manufacture the world's highest quality and highest capacity conductors. We call that HPC, high performance conductors. We are a market leader in that, and we have tie-ups with companies around the world, including the US, who give us the technology for that product. The second thing that we do is the installation. These products require specialist installation because you need to keep the line in operating condition while installing it. And this requires use of helicopters, requires use of very specialized skill sets, many of whom we bring from around the world. So recently our Goa project, where we upgraded a line that brings power into Panjim, we used a helicopter crew team from South Africa, and we used the tools and equipment from Italy, and we used an Indian agency to put all the three together and deliver a unique solution for Goa. So we feel very proud when we know that perhaps for the first time in many years during Christmas season, Goa will not have load shedding, and that's an incredible thing to achieve. And it's our entire team that has achieved that. So those are the types of technologies we're doing. We believe that the last 30 years have been about creation of hard assets. The next 10-20 years may be creation of hard assets, but optimizing current assets, and even more use of software to further optimize those assets. So you take an existing corridor, you double the capacity, like the way I mentioned to you, but over and above that, you add a very smart, intelligent layer of software, which will then ensure that the energy is like a traffic signal, goes to the right place at the right time, an intelligent traffic signal. And we think that we are very early stages of talking to artificial intelligence companies and companies of that nature to help us maybe create a solution for software.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So, with the sector growing at a light speed, a lot
Right.
of mergers and acquisitions have come on the table.
Sure.
Does Sterlite also, do you have such plans?
So we don't have an M&A plan. What we have is that we have to have to solve the sector's problems. We have to have a host of solutions, and we can either develop those solutions or we can acquire those solutions. But we have a tight deadline. These problems are here to stay, and we have a clear deadline that we must have XYZ solution by so and so time. And if we're not able to develop in that much time, then we scout the world to acquire those solutions. So we're not looking to make big ticket acquisitions, but we're looking to do a string of pearl strategy, where wherever required we acquire small solutions, not necessarily from the power sector, to actually solve the biggest challenges of the power sector.
Are you in talks with anyone right now?
We're always in talks with people, but we're very fussy about M&A, and we don't conclude. We tend to make sure that is really a requirement for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, recently Sterlite has sought SEBI nod for a 2,500 crore fundraising.
Right.
So, what are you going to use it for?
Okay. So again, a little bit of background. Globally, infrastructure is financed by long-term institutions like pension funds, insurance companies, and some sovereign wealth funds. They are the ones who have deep pockets, long tenure, are not looking for capital repayment, and really enjoy stable assets. Right. India, unfortunately, India has had a very good run of infrastructure development, starting with roads and power, and now going into transmission and ports and things like that. But India has not really been able to attract large amount of capital from those buckets, and because of which there's relied on promoter money, and any promoter, no matter how big he is, has an upper limit on how much he can fund. Our vision for funding power for growing our power transmission ownership business is that our role in this sector is of a developer. We take the tough challenges, which is to take a project on paper and convert it to a real project in a record time, using state-of-the-art design, engineering, financing, project management, supply chain, commissioning. That's what we do. What is not a good use of our capital is to keep our money tied up in projects which are operating in nature, because these are low risk projects and someone else will much rather have those projects than us. And that is the purpose of the InvIT. I give full credit to the government of India for being so visionary in their approach, adopting the InvIT, which is prevalent in the North American markets and Singapore markets, providing a fantastic tax break, which is the dividend distribution exemption tax, and releasing the circulars. We've been working with SEBI, who've been extremely progressive, and we think that if we're able to launch this product, it will create a completely new equity financing market in India, which will be so deep that maybe government will never need to fund infrastructure again. It can get completely funded by this market. So very excited by when we hope to be one of the first ones to do it. To your question, what will we use it for? We will use it largely to put it back and do more projects, recycle equity and do more projects.
Transmission has grown phenomenally, no doubt, but somewhere intrastate transmission has lacked.
Right.
So, your plans on that and what you think should be the right policy for that?
Perfect. No. So any chain is as weak as its weakest link, and that's exactly what has happened in India. The center has done a very good job of bringing in private investment from 2010. Power Grid, which is one of the best PSUs in the country, has done a phenomenal job. This year they have commissioned 30,000 crores of projects. Hats off to them in a country like India. But it doesn't help anyone if you deliver it and the last mile doesn't get built, because the farmer in a village or the small scale industry textile manufacturer is still suffering from exorbitant load shedding, exorbitant prices. And I think the culprit there, largely speaking, is the system has not allowed states to invest sufficiently in transmission. That's a major thrust area for the government. We believe that the central government is very serious about extending the TBCB model into the states. We as a company are excited about it. We're trying to talk to a few states to encourage this model. Few states have done a good job, MP, Haryana, Rajasthan, but the other states need to catch up. And we are very confident that if the states can bring up this model, they can solve their transmission problems largely in a matter of 3 or 5 years.
All right. You have also commissioned your Kashmir project well before time.
Right.
So, any other project that we could see you commissioning before time?
So, since you talk about it, that's something that's we're very, very proud and passionate about. Full credit goes to our 250 strong Sterlite Grid team and our 700 strong Sterlite Power team, which worked as one unit and took a call that Jammu and Kashmir needs power urgently. And although the government had given us 36 months for this phase of the project, our team took a call that we will do it 1 year ahead of schedule. And we're so proud to say that we have delivered this project 14 months ahead of schedule. And of course, it was charged 2 months after that. So the line is now operational. It is, we believe, from the grid operator, it is sending an extra 300 megawatts to Kashmir, which is adding 20% electricity supply to Kashmir. And all of us know what impact power can have on the trade in a state. It's a multiplier effect. One additional unit generates so many thousand rupees of extra revenue, right? So we're very proud of that. We have recently commissioned one of our lines in the east, which is called from Kharagpur to Chaibasa. This line is also supplying an extra 300-400 megawatts to the city of Calcutta, otherwise suffering from load shedding. So we have realized this has proven a couple of things. This has proven that the lines that have been awarded, they are all system strengthening lines, and the sooner you commission them, the better it is for the country. Sometimes people are in a misconception that line should not come up too early because it's a stranded asset. We have proved from these two lines that although they've come up almost a year early, they're still providing tremendous benefit to the grid. And we encourage the government to continue its policy on encouraging early commissioning, as the minister has recently done. And that is the way to really enhance the value of public-private partnership. Right. Coming to your question about commissioning new projects, absolutely, we will commission some project or the other maybe every quarter, because we have, as I said, total 10 projects. These 10 projects consist of perhaps 30 elements, and each element is an independent part of the grid. And like we commissioned 2 elements last month, we'll commission few elements every quarter. And we look forward to keep adding value to the grid.
Okay. So this is for Sterlite Grid, and the other two businesses that you have under Sterlite Power.
Right.
What is the progress there? What kind of projects have you taken up?
Good. So Sterlite Power, as I said, apart from grid, does manufacturing and turnkey solutions. Manufacturing is a classic manufacturing business. We are the largest conductor manufacturer in the country, largest installed capacity, and we supply to every utility in the country and to almost 40 countries around the world. The interesting thing that's happening over there is that there is a big pull coming from almost every customer in the country that they want high performance conductors. They want that their right of way is so precious that they want conductors from us that can transport double or triple power from the same route. And that's an interesting trend that we're seeing in the whole market. The second thing that is moving very fast, I told you about, is our turnkey solutions business, which we call MSI, where we not only supply a product, but we do the complete installation end to end. We also, because of our sister company Sterlite Tech, we also create a communication layer along with the power line, and that allows the operator to operate the line far more efficiently and in a smarter manner. We call it a smart line. So these are things that we are seeing. We are expecting that with the congestion in the country at the intrastate level, we think that the turnkey solutions business could grow 5 times every year, just the given amount of demand in the country. And we are getting ready with the right technologies. So to give you an example, we about 3 or 4 months ago, we announced a alliance with a Finnish company called Sharper Shape. Their prime minister was in India visiting Make in India, and in his presence, we signed an agreement with them to pursue the use of drones for utility management. Drone technology has improved dramatically. The cameras are very high quality, and we plan to use drones to not only help build new lines, but also to do surveillance of the lines, so that we can do preventive maintenance, and downtime of the lines pan India can reduce. And yeah.
Great. So having talked about this, new technologies and other things, but we still have the issue of congestion, like you rightly pointed out.
Yeah.
So when we talk about one grid, one nation, how effective do you think it is right now?
Okay, so I think one grid, one nation is a theory. It's a great theory to pursue as a country. I think recently we've been talking about one grid, one nation, one price. And I think the country will move to one grid, one nation, one price, which is the ultimate for any grid. That is, to create a grid so efficient and so pervasive that the price of power is same in any part of the country, right? Like a perfectly balancing force. We think there's been good progress, but it's been slow. I think there is still a situation, not today, but maybe 6 months or a year ago, where the price of power, let's say in Chhattisgarh, and the price of power in Tamil Nadu was worlds apart. And that's not good for a country. The investment in creation of new lines is going to pick up pace with the addition of private sector as well. And one should see over the next maybe 6 to 12 quarters that transmission congestion, at least at the interstate level, should become very little. Having said that, the problem is no longer in transmission creation. The problem is in regulation. Do we truly have an open access policy? Do we have the guts to get rid of cross subsidy surcharge? If we can create these, or rather, if we can remove these market distortions and create a true Indian market like Europe, that is an extremely powerful thing to happen. And I think in the new bill that is being put up in the parliament, that is one of the proposals. And if that can go through and be implemented, then we can have a one grid, one nation, one grid, one price as early as maybe 12 to 18 months from now.
Okay. And private players like you have often said that Power Grid has been, monopolizing the market, and you guys haven't got a bigger chance to participate. So
Right.
Your thoughts and
right. Yeah. So some of it is a natural progression, right? Natural evolution. Till 2011, 100% of projects was done by the public sector. 2011 onwards, the government slowly started introducing, and companies like Sterlite Grid were born because of that. It's not possible to do a cold turkey on one day. We believe that as of 2000, somewhere in 2013, 14, 15, about 30-40% of all projects were given on tariff-based bidding basis, and the balance on cost plus. We think that 2016 will be the defining year where close to 100% of projects will be on the tariff-based bidding model, where Power Grid is also competing like with everyone else, and that's a truly transparent, equal market open for all, right? Having said that, it is true that being a public sector entity as well as being a part of the planning body, because CTU is a part of Power Grid, one could allege that there are some conflicts of interest. The person who's planning clearly has more knowledge about the projects than anyone else because he's planning the projects. And I think this has also led to a subdued interest and investment in power transmission from the global fraternity. So you have found many Indians in this sector, but you've not found many global players who are otherwise very interested in transmission. For example, if you see Latin America, entire Latin America transmission is being created by Spanish players. But why we have not found them coming here is perhaps because many of them still see Power Grid as a key customer of theirs, and they're not comfortable competing with Power Grid in these open bidding. So that could be a market distortion. Having said that, I think the government has done the right steps. It's taken them 5 years to ease off the dependence on Power Grid. And now the government must be very, very clear that it is absolutely not allowed to give projects on cost plus basis, which not only cost more, the tariff is higher, but also take more time to execute compared to tariff based bidding projects. So I think the government is clear, and I hope that they will honor their word on this.
Great. So 2015 saw a lot of transmission projects being bid out,
Right.
but so far in 2016 there haven't been much projects.
Right.
So do you think that the later half of the year will see more projects coming up?
Yeah. So if you see the entire 2010 to 2015 period, a large amount of projects was planned on the back of generation projects, coal-fired and gas-fired power generation, and some hydro. Now, all of us know that those are kind of been put on a hold, or the pace has been reduced for good reason. That entire generation is being replaced by renewables. Until last year, all the renewable evacuation was being done by Power Grid. The government has now committed that renewable evacuation has to be put on tariff-based competitive bidding, and we do expect a lot of projects for renewable evacuation to come up this year. Not only that, they have to come in a very compressed timeline. One normally had 36 months on average to do a transmission line project. I don't think for renewable evacuation they can give more than 12 months or 18 months, because the solar parks are coming so fast that you need to match the timelines of the solar parks. But I'd like to say one more thing, that the regulators and the policymakers must see transmission not as a cost but as a market enabler. Transmission is roughly 35 paisa of your per unit cost, which is about 7% of the cost of electricity in the country. And if you overinvest in transmission, your electricity cost is not going to go up because it's only 7%. But if you overinvest in transmission, you create a perfect market. And a small textile mill sitting in Chennai should be able to buy cheap hydro that is available, let's say, in Northeast, or should be able to buy surplus power generated by a cement plant, maybe in Rajasthan. That requires significant investment in transmission and also a true open access policy. And there are many studies around the world which show that an overinvestment in transmission leads to GDP growth rather than an underinvestment in transmission.
But having said all of this, the demand for power hasn't grown as much as it was expected.
True.
So do you think there will be a slowdown in the transmission as well as in other sectors of energy?
Right. So it's interesting, right? It's like when power demand flattens, what happens is that there is still congestion all over the grid, which needs to get removed. So it's like a road, right? Even if let's say traffic on the road hasn't improved, but you've got one road in the whole network which is only single lane, and the balanced roads are 4 lane, you still have to make that single lane road into 4 lane, even though there's no traffic growth, because otherwise the balanced lanes are useless. So investment in transmission should continue almost the same regardless of upswings and downswings in the consumption. Having said that, we think that with the entire push of the Modi government, Make in India, all those policies, we think that load growth should be high single digits, if not double digit, soon, and that should mean the creation of a large amount of power transmission. Globally, for every dollar invested in generation, a dollar has to be invested in T&D, whereas India has been investing about 30 cents in T&D for a dollar in generation, and that equation has to change.
Great. And then finally, the financials about the company. So what kind
Sure.
of debt do you have right now, and are you comfortable with that?
Absolutely. We have, I don't have the exact numbers, we have 5,000 crores of debt in the business, out of which almost 80% of that is at a project non-recourse level. The projects are self-financing, they are viable. In fact, very proud to say that we are the only infrastructure project in the country, ENICL, which has got a AAA rating from CRISIL without government guarantees, without corporate guarantees, which shows the strength of the project, which basically means that although it's a AAA SO, but it means that the rating of that entity is same as the rating of State Bank of India. That shows you the financial strength of these entities that we are creating. And we are very comfortable with the debt in those entities. We continue to leverage at the project level. And of course, our goal is to be as unlevered at the holding company level as possible.
Okay. So finally, on a lighter note, you are a trained pilot. So what made you move to transmission?
So flying is always been my hobby.
Okay.
And I learned it while I was in business school in UK. And it's I think people have been obsessed with flying ever since the Wright brothers invented planes. So that obviously I got the bug with that. For me, it's a passion. I continue to pursue it. We have a small club in Juhu from where we fly. But what I've been very fortunate is I've been able to integrate that into business. And when we got into power transmission, we realized that the reason projects are delayed is not always because of right of way. Projects are also delayed because the projects are in absolutely far-flung areas with no access or road. And we realized that aviation can solve that problem. Aviation can transport material at maybe 10 times or 20 times the speed as ground methods. And we're very, very excited that our second phase of our Kashmir project, which is going to take up to 2,000 megawatts to the heart of Kashmir Valley, which is the Srinagar region, Baramulla region. We are going to be using a heli crane from America with a crew of 8 Americans who are going to be helping us build this line in record time, 1 year ahead of schedule, by transporting all the material, which would have otherwise transported by perhaps 5,000 mules, will now be transported by 1 or 2 helicopters. And we think that in general, my personal view is that use of aviation, both in the form of transporter as well as use of drones for project monitoring, pipeline surveillance, road surveillance, transmission line surveillance, we think that aviation is going to completely disrupt the infrastructure industry in the coming years. And I'm lucky to have an aviation background and to bring that into my workspace.
Great. Thank you so much for talking to us, sir.
Thank you very much.
So that was Mr. Pratik Agarwal, MD and CEO of Sterlite Power, talking to us about the company's plans and projects going ahead. Stay tuned for more interviews. We'll be back soon. Thank you.